Hello and welcome back to another tutorial. Today we're going to be talking through making some dramatic lighting edits to the photos you guys just took. So I'm going to go ahead and show you 5 different methods for 5 different photos that you could apply to some of your own photos yourself. Alright, the first thing we have is something relatively easy. So this is for any of the light writing photos you did or light painting. So I'm going to go ahead, delete what I have here. And then you can see my original photo. All I did was I first went in and adjusted my levels. So just kind of messing around with the lights and the darks a bit, messing around, leaving a full range of values, but then just going in, making my darks a little bit darker, brights a little bit brighter, just creating like a high contrast kind of uh, value range. And then I'm going to go ahead and add in my hue and saturation. In here, I can just go ahead, bump up my saturation a bit, bring those colors out a little bit more, then maybe bring down the overall darkness just a touch. My hue slider is really just going to prioritize different colors. I don't really need to do much with that unless I really wanted to like lean into more of one color than another, but I was pretty happy with where it was naturally, so I'm going to go ahead and leave that there. Alright, so again, that's pretty simple, just adjusting your levels, going in with hue and saturation. Not much more I would need to do with this, and if you were doing something with light writing too, I wouldn't imagine you would need much more. If you were doing light writing but your photo, like you just used a like white flashlight, you could go in, make it a black and white photo just to really push the high contrast. But really, messing around with any of these things definitely could get you some cool results. But just making sure you have levels and then you have some other adjustment layer to really like stretch out and exaggerate kind of the subject of the photo. All right, next thing we're going to be looking at is doing a front lighting kind of edit. This is not the only way to edit a front lighting photo, but I just found this to be a good way to edit this photo. You can see I used my flash to take this picture of this tree. And then again, you can see I've already adjusted my layers. Since we already went through that on the first one, I'm not going to show you how to do that. It's pretty just, you kind of have to just mess with it until you get your values right. I am going to show you how to make this selection and how to add in for this one, gradient fill. You could also do a color fill with this. So I'm going to go ahead, toss that out. And then you can see my original photo, right? Kind of brought down the values a little bit, brought out those darker values more with the levels. And then I want to just select these front pieces of this branch. So I'm going to go up to select at the very top of my screen. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit subject. And then it's going to auto generate a selection for me. And now it grabbed a little bit more than what I wanted. It grabbed part of the trees just because it was looking for kind of this orange color when it was grabbing pixels or just the things that it thought was the subject of the photo. So now I'm going to go into my quick select and go into my subtract from selection. I could go ahead, maybe bump up my brush a little bit. And then I'm just going to go ahead and brush away the parts that are not needed. Alright, so then now from there, I've made my selection on my original photo here. I'm now going to go into my adjustment layer over here, and I'm going to go in with my gradient. And as you saw before, I had selected, I went into orange just to kind of bring out the orange within this tree branch or these seeds or what have you. And I did this kind of peachy color I thought was interesting. From there, I can go ahead and hit OK, and then I can go ahead and then pick a adjustment layer or sorry, a blend mode that would then look good for my photo. So I think I went with multiply before, and then it's still pretty saturated, so I'm gonna go ahead and bring this down, maybe 50%. And then we can go ahead and look at the before, look at the after. Just kind of really brings out that color in a nice way. Focuses more on the orange. And again, just a really nice way to kind of edit just the subject of your photo. All right, so now I'm going to show you the opposite. Same photo, just taken without the flash. And I'm going to show you how you can go ahead and just select the background. So again, already did my levels. I made a selection for my levels too, so if you make a selection and then add the levels adjustment layer, it'll only impact that area. You can do that as well. And then here I want to go ahead, go up to select, and now I could pick sky, but there's going to be a problem with this specific photo, and I can show that to you. So if you go here, it's going to select what it is registering as the sky. And as you see up here, I'm missing parts of this because it's not registering this darker value as the sky. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Command D to unselect that. And then I'm going to go ahead back up to select, and I'm going to pick this option, which says color range. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead, color drop the area. You can see that it kind of did the little color swatch over here. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Makes a much more accurate selection here. So now I'm going to go ahead into color. Maybe I want to make this blue sky look more of more like a orange sky. So I'm going to go into my solid color. I'm going to go ahead down to a more orangey kind of, maybe more red orange. I'm pretty vibrant. I could change this later, but I'm going to go ahead and see what my blend modes do. Maybe I'll move a little bit more towards white. And then it's going to blend into the background, so I can go ahead and pick one that kind of works with the blue behind it. I think screen looks nice for this one. Gonna go ahead, jump around, and then maybe something like that. Again, the original one I did had more of like a purpley look to it. You could also do something like that. Just really depends on the vibe you're trying to capture. All right. All right, so that is how you could make a selection on the sky to exaggerate more of a backlit photo. And then we have this one here. This one I made a couple of selections here. I did the exposure to kind of bring out this sign. I made a selection on the window to make the lighting inside of the laundromat appear more of like a yellowy color instead of this more like white kind of fluorescent light color. So I warmed that up and then did my levels just to overall balance the photo. So I can show you how I went about all of these things. So again, here you can see with my exposure, I just made a selection of this sign. And then with my color filter, I went in and made a selection of the window itself and then just added the color fill filter, kind of like we've done before. And I'll show you how I did that. So with a photo like this, where there's so many different changes of value, it'd be really hard to use one of these select functions from the top. And so I find it easy just for this one to use the magnetic lasso tool, where I could go in and I could select and again you can click if it's not making a selection that you want it to. You just click and it'll make a selection there. And there you have it. That is a selection. Now if I go ahead and hit Command D and unselect that, I can go here. I can go to subject on this one, and then you can see it kind of just like grabs things a little bit, you know, not perfect. So I'm gonna go ahead, go back to my original, just hitting Command Z to undo. And then I'm gonna go ahead, add in my solid color. Again, find more of that like yellowy kind of light. Maybe even pick more of a grayish yellow. See how that could look. Might be too dark. And then I can go in and I can make some adjustments. So if I wanted to go into my color fill, I just have to make sure I select the layer mask. And I can zoom in. And you can see here I missed this portion here. So I'm going to go back in with my brush tool. I'm going to go ahead, click this little icon to make this black and white. I'm going to go over here to my brush tool. Make sure I'm in my layer mask. I need to have whites. And I need to turn down my brush size. And then I can brush that back in. This area too, missed that. Can now kind of inspect the rest of the photo. Maybe I would want to bring the color fill into like this light reflected on the car, because if the light's coming from the laundromat and it's like kind of this more yellow light, it would maybe make sense for this light reflected on the car to also have that yellow light. Alright, and then that is that. Now I'm going to show you how I went about doing this exposure layer on this here. So if I go ahead and delete that. Now, something that I have to do, because obviously you can see I can't really see that anymore. So I can go up to my brightness and I can kind of bump up the photo a lot unnaturally. I'm not going to keep it like this. I'm going to just do it to grab what I need from this, from the sign, and then I'm going to go ahead and delete that layer. So go back to the magnet lasso tool. Alright, and then I have my selection. I'm now going to go to adjustment layers. I'm going to go to exposure. I'm going to go ahead and delete my brightness and contrast layer now. And then I'm going to go ahead and I can bump up the exposure on the photo. I don't want it to look like unnatural though. Like something like that looks like it's like now like a lit up sign, which it's not. I'm going to just bring it up just a touch. And then you can see here, the edge is very sharp. And so then over in your properties, you have the, if I click into the layer mask, I have this tool called Feather. And if I were to bump this up, it just will soften that edge so it feels a bit more natural. Okay. And maybe I want to zoom out to see that. Okay, and then now I can go there. If I want to go back in, maybe bump down my exposure, bump it up, whatever just like feels right, feels natural. Or maybe, you know, you would decide that it doesn't look natural at all, and then it's better to have the photo just be like this. Completely up to you, just different ways that you can kind of grab specific things and alter them without altering the whole photo. All right. All right, and then last but not least, I'm going to show you how you can do an inverted layer mask. So With this, if I were to go ahead, delete these, here's my original photo. Again, I'm going to use the magnet lasso tool on this one. I'm going to go ahead, grab all of the pink area. So I'm just kind of following that. I might have to do some hand manual clicking. And then I'm just going to go ahead, close this up. It's not going to be perfect, but I'll go back and I'll finish that later. All right, so there is my selection. I'm now going to go into my adjustment layers and I'm going to do solid color. You could also do a gradient for this one. But I want to make the, like, really exaggerate the pink. So I'm going to go in and like make this like a magenta. I can now hit OK on that. And then I will need to blend mode. All right, I'm actually going to do darken. All right, so then I'm picking the darken blend mode. And then if I go into my layer mask, I could then feather that. And then that's going to get rid of this harsh edge. So if we look here and then I were to feather, again, it's just going to get softer and softer and look a little bit more natural than having such a blunt edge, okay? So this looks great, but it kind of leaves the other half looking like a little bit unedited. And so now what I can do is I can click on my color fill layer and I can hold down Command and J at the same time. It's going to duplicate that layer. And then I want to now click on my layer mask and I'm going to go ahead and hit Command I and it'll invert this layer, which now you can see it's made this area pink. I don't want the whole photo to be pink, so I'm going to go in and I'm going to pick maybe like a dark blue to kind of live in the shadows of my photos, okay? So then I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. You can now see it's kind of feathered this out a little bit. Made it a little bit dark in a way that isn't kind of doing anything for the photo. So I'm going to go ahead and see if maybe selecting a different blend mode could be cool for this. And you know what? I kind of liked the look of this, but I almost want it to just be like a darker. And then I could go into this layer mask and I could feather this out a little bit. And then it kind of gives me this cool kind of like, this is like this duotone-esque look. And then this has a little bit more value to it. Kind of this cool two-toned edit. So then I can go in to my layer masks and I can kind of brush away any issues like the edges over here. I wasn't very perfect about that. So I could blend that to bring out more of the pink. If I go here, do the opposite, get rid of any residual blue. Could kind of fix up the face to prioritize specific colors. And then there you have it. Those are some of the edits that you can do for your dramatic lighting photos. All right, so as always, don't forget to save these photos. Don't forget to export these photos. Make sure you turn them all in as JPEGs and that you rename all of them before doing so. You're going to be doing 5 different edits to any of your photos, and happy editing. Thanks for watching.